likes to this videos? If we make 5,000 likes to this video, we will upload more patriotic news. Thank you. Al Gore claims that every Christian's purpose of life must be to fight climate change. Global warming alarmist Al Gore is trying to manipulate Christians by suggesting that the purpose of a Christian's life must be to fight climate change. Now, I was taught in my church that the purpose of life is to glorify God, and if we are heaping contempt on God's creation, then we are not living up to the duty that God is calling us to, explained Gore. The way we live our lives is definitely connected to this. It's not a political issue, it is a moral and spiritual issue, he explained in an interview with CNN along with the liberal Catholic priest, John Roush. I'll tell you, Pope Francis is really an amazing spiritual leader, said Gore in his pandering speech. My daughter, Karina Gore, runs the Center for Earth Ethics here at Union Theological Seminary. And she was part of a study group, Multi-Faith, reading that. And so I got deeply into it because of her. And, yes, the habits of overconsumption and looking for happiness and just more things, that definitely is a part of the issue, for sure, said Gore. The priest agreed with Gore that climate change is a spiritual issue. I've come to realize that the climate crisis, I believe, is a crisis in spirituality. And I mean by spirituality a connectedness, a spiritual connectedness that we all are connected. We are connected to nature. We're also connected to God. Okay, explained the priest. Stabenow launches desperate personal attack against Kid Rock as she loses in the polls. Robert Ritchie, otherwise known as Kid Rock, has decided to run for Senate. It has been controversial, yet poll after poll indicates that Kid Rock is in the lead. His political opponent Stabenow was asked about these polls, and she attacked Kid Rock personally. She suggested that he wouldn't be able to stop playing music and isn't a serious threat. Well, I haven't seen a legitimate poll that showed him ahead, but what I would say is we're a long way from the campaign. He's going to be busy. He's got concerts and there's 4 people so far in the Republican primary, so I think if he gets in, he's going to be busy, said Stabenow in an interview with the Daily Caller. But what if Rock were to officially declare his candidacy for the Michigan Senate seat and beat his opponents in the primary? Asks the Daily Caller. Well, you know, for me, it's not about who's running on the other side. It's about the families of Michigan. And as far as I'm concerned, this is about my continuing to fight for them every day. That's what I do, said Stabenow. I've lived in Michigan my whole life, raised my family. I get up every day and fight for Michigan. And so that's what my focus is, she said. It'll be interesting to watch the Republican primary 4-way primary, said Stabenow. Nancy Pelosi just got some career-shattering news from fellow Democratic representatives. More and more, Democrats have been challenging who is in charge of their failing party. They're considering that they need new leaders, and Pelosi has been desperately trying to defend herself. I am a master legislator. I know the budget to the nth degree. I know the motivation of people. I respect the people who are in Congress. I feel very confident about the support I have in my caucus, said Pelosi. However, several Democratic congressmen have suggested that it is time for Pelosi to go. What we've got to do, not just for our party, but I think for so many American people, is start winning again. Start bringing some balance back to Washington and start winning with leadership that the American people can trust, not the old, tired Democratic partisan leadership, but really a new generation of leaders who are going to put the country first, suggested Representative Seth Moulton, D-Mass, on CBS. Former CIA agent Brian Dean Wright also had a lot to say. He recently published an article called "I'm a Democrat but Nancy Pelosi is totally clueless about what Democrats need to do to win." If Pelosi and others like her won't step down, the rebels must make it clear to America's voters that the DC Democrats do not speak for them. Officials like Pelosi have become unresponsive and tone-deaf, pushing failed schemes like a better deal when what American voters want is better leadership, said Wright. It's time that Democrats give voters what they deserve, said Joy Behar has meltdown over Texas law allowing students to carry guns, fellow panelist crushes her. Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar completely freaked out over Texas passing a law allowing students to carry guns on campus. However, the more conservative view panelist Jedediah Bila crushed both of them with logic. I'm not a gun owner. And when you study these shootings, what you find out is that a lot of these lunatics, these maniacs, target gun-free zones. You see it all the time. There's stats upon stats. I want those students who have a license to carry, who have gone through the process, who have been approved, to not be sitting ducks in those classrooms, argued Bila. You do know that to get a gun license, you don't have to actually learn how to shoot the gun. I'm telling you, people can go and buy guns and never ever have to go to a gun range, interrupted Goldberg. Statistically, you are more likely to kill another civilian or yourself with a gun. This is part of the insanity that's going on in this country right now, screamed Behar. What about the professors who give you an F? I'd be scared to teach in that class. Behar screamed. Why should a citizen who has gone through background checks, who has gone through the proper protocol. Why should they be sitting there in that classroom. The gun is not the problem, responded B. Sarah Huckabee Sanders loses it over Russia conspiracies, makes the speech to end all speeches. Day after day after day, CNN and other mainstream media outlets have done nothing but talk about Russian conspiracies. Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders has finally had enough. She let everyone know this in a fiery speech. The press asked Sanders questions about Don Jr.'s meeting with a Russian lawyer, and accused President Trump of being misleading. The only thing I see misleading is a year's worth of stories that have been fueling a false narrative about this Russia collusion, and a phony scandal based on anonymous sources, said Sanders. And I think that is, if we're going to talk about misleading, that's that only thing misleading I see in this entire process. You guys are focused on a meeting that Don Jr. had no consequence when the Democrats actually colluded with a foreign government like Ukraine. The Democrat-linked firm, Fusion GPS, actually took money from the Russian government while it created the phony dossier that's been the basis for all of the Russia scandal fake news, said Sanders. And if you want to talk further about a relationship with Russia, look no further than the Clintons. As we've said time and time again, Bill Clinton was paid $500,000 to give a speech to a Russian bank and was personally thanked by Putin for it. Hillary Clinton allowed 1/5 of America's uranium reserve to be sold to a Russian firm whose investors were Clinton Foundation donors, she said. And the Clinton campaign chairman's brother lobbied against sanctions on Russia's largest bank and failed to report it. If you guys want to talk about having relations, which you seem obsessed with doing, look no further than there, she said. Tucker Carlson crushes Cal exit advocate who wants to export California's middle class. There is a group of people in the state of California who are so horrified that Donald Trump is president that they want California to become its own country. Tucker Carlson interviewed one of these nutjobs, and they turned out to be even crazier than imagined, suggesting that California will export their middle class to the United States and replace them with illegal immigrants. Your state or country or whatever we're calling it now. There's been a massive exodus of middle-class Californians to neighboring states. The numbers are there. You've lost hundreds of thousands making between $100,000 and $200,000 over the past 10 years, and they've enriched Idaho and Montana and even Wyoming and Washington state. If it's such a well-run place, why are the middle class leaving? Asked Carlson. Tucker, you have to look at the bigger picture here. The 5th largest economy in the world. Just repeat that. Say it again. We are the 5th largest economy, argued Shankar Singham, the vice president of the California Freedom Coalition. It's basically the economy of Mexico. You've got a small number of rich people, the tech people, and then you've got a ton of poor people and the middle class is leaving. That's a recipe for instability. You're aware of that, right? Asked Carlson. If everyone in the middle class is leaving, that's actually a good thing. We need these spots opened up for the new wave of immigrants to come up. It's what we do. We export our middle class to the United States. You guys should be thanking us for that, replied Singh.